Hey guys, Ben Osterveld here with the Business from Within podcast. Okay guys, this is Business from Within. We have, it's our love and the raw truth show. I'm the raw truth. Kelsey is
and
all
I'm
love.
the love.
Sometimes it flips though. We trade roles once in a while. But
sometimes.
Yeah. Anyways, we have Crissa on our show today. She reached out. She's from Boston. Hi, Crissa.
Hi.
So real quick, what the heck would you want to be on this show for? Like, why reach out and think it's cool to be on? What was the draw?
Well, I just have been listening to your podcasts, especially the ones that you guys do together. Been following Kelsey for a long time, and she just always seems to be spot on with advice. And then I really appreciated the chemistry that you guys had. So when I saw the opportunity to work with you both, I figured I'd jump on it.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like that, like there's people that really would love to do that and they don't. You know what I mean? Like it takes a lot of courage to do that, and so I have to commend you for that. So
Good.
Yeah, it's not easy just to jump in front of, a huge group of people that are just watching this later. But I think the people that come on the show kind of have a sense of inspiration to maybe if this helps someone else, then that's why I think why would someone want to come on the show and let other people see? Like, so do you have that in you? A little bit of like want to affect people in a good way? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Kelsey and I looked at your application and went through things. We actually were going to get on here a little early, but you jumped on so quick. We were like, oh, there she is. So we are going to go the way it is going.
Yeah, we're going to get the real intuitive flow going on here today, which is I think is probably better because then we're not like overthinking things and like really dropping in and serving from the heart, and whatever's meant to come through is going to come through.
For sure.
And I love that.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself? This is a call that we don't really know you. If you give us a little bit of like Cole's notes on whatever you think is important, maybe just share a little bit, and then I've got some questions. I'm sure Kelsey does, and we can try to support you.
Sure. So I just turned 28 on the 5th of this month. So I work full-time as a marketing manager for a major nonprofit. And then I work also on the weekends as well, a second job to help pay off my master's degree. And I just moved to Boston for the job that I have now. Previously, I was living in New York. I grew up in New Jersey, did my undergrad in Connecticut, so just making my way around the Northeast in the U.S. here. And currently single, and hoping to just really like find the right partner. And I'm really at a point right now where, and I know this is so bad, but I compare myself to everyone else and see everyone else paired up and wonder why not me. And that's kind of what drew me to you guys here.
Okay.
Kelsey,
and what's a little bit about your relationship history? Because you mentioned some former relationship in your application, and I'm curious if you could flesh that out a little bit more, give us a little bit of a picture of your love life in the past.
Sure. So I've had 3 long term relationships. And in each one of those instances, I was the one who ended it and I walked away. But in each one of those, and I've realized as I've reflected over the years that they never ended cleanly, and I went back with every one of them,
Okay.
continued it, and then eventually ended it for good. Most recently, the one that I still struggle with is a relationship that I had that started in the fall of 2014, and he's about 10 years older than I am, divorced, and has a child. At the time that we got together, he was injured He was going to physical therapy for rehab. And then about 3 months into us dating, he had major back surgery and needed essentially somebody to come and help him, take care of him. And I stepped up and did that. And at the time, my living situation was complicated as well, so it sort of worked out for both of us. I needed a place to go, and he needed someone to live with him, essentially. And so that really sped up things in our relationship. Then I knew his daughter beforehand, so she quickly became involved in that aspect, and I played stepmom for a few years. And I just, all along, kept telling myself that this wasn't the life for me. This is not what I wanted. I didn't want a pre-made family, basically, that I was coming into. I wanted sort of my own, and that's what I told him when I walked away eventually, which was in 2016, so about 2 years into it. And then for about another year and a half, we did this cycle of getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. And then I wound up moving away. Okay. And I moved last March, not this past March, March of last year. I moved about 2 hours away from him to get a fresh start. Had a clean break for quite a while, maybe 8 months or so, and then wound up going back for another 2 months, and then ended it again for good. And now I just moved to Boston in March of this year, and he and I are still in touch. We'll talk every once in a while, just give each other updates on things. But every time we speak, he says that he would take me back in a heartbeat, and that we're meant to be together, and why can't we be together? And I feel like he's just not my person.
What was your reason for ending the relationship?
So there was the thing that I told myself was that it was because I didn't want I didn't want the stepmom life. I didn't want that role. But there was just other factors as well. I felt that he was very manipulative, and I saw him manipulate other people, which in turn made me wonder if he was manipulating me. Okay. And I would really sort of question that, and I had a hard time trusting him. Not that he ever did anything to me specifically to make me not trust him, if that makes sense. I just didn't like his actions and behaviors towards others. And then there was just some other factors as well that I just couldn't see raising a family with him. Like, that's one thing that's really important to me, that I want children of my own one day. But the way that he would be as a disciplinarian, and then just the way that he was, the thoughts and ideas that he was teaching his daughter that I saw, I didn't care for that.
Okay. So what has you continue to stay in touch with this guy?
So I usually stay in touch with him to find out what's going on with his daughter, because I really just care about her so much. And there's just been a lot going on in her life that I like to stay on top of. To give you a little insight into that, like her actual mother and her don't have the best relationship, and she's in a new relationship now, and she just isn't happy there and isn't being taken care of, and has had days where she's like not, not having a shower or not having a meal, like not having a lunch to bring to school, stuff like that. So I'm worried about her and concerned about her. So most of the outreach that I have to him is to find out what's going on with her, what's the latest with that.
Okay. And with your other 2 previous relationships, was there any degree of caretaking that was happening there with either of them? Like you felt compelled that you could provide something to nurture their experience?
I don't think so.
So that was just exclusive to this relationship?
I would say.
Okay. Ben, do you have anything you want to ask about that? I have a good amount of information here, but if you have any other questions.
I gotta mine are always so Kelsey's so gentle and stuff. I just want to ask some questions, and I'm gonna come across like an asshole, but I'm not really, of course. I'm just joking around, really. But I just think of a few things. I just can't get around my head. Do you know what it is, Crissa? We tell ourselves stories. I'm not saying you're doing that. You might be. I mean, we all are. Okay, and we have these stories we tell ourselves, and we're so convinced they're true because we don't want to face what's really going on. And you're talking to the master here, trained salesman selling myself and everyone around me about a truth. And I need people in my life to say bullshit. And that's the biggest thing that's helped me in my life, is that I get challenged and going, is that true? And that's one of my favorite questions. So I just want to dig a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think about, you're saying the relationship, and I may be going down a rabbit hole, and if there's nothing there, who cares? But you're saying that the relationship, you didn't want a relationship where you kind of had a built family, instant family, right? Mm-hmm. But didn't you know that when you dated him? Or was that something you discovered after?
So
that's a funny smile you got there. I don't know, I'm getting I'd like to hear the story. What's going on there?
So I've been working on this and sort of making observations and judgments and things about my past and what I've done, and compared to going forward in the future. So I did know that going in, but I thought maybe I was wrong, and let's give it a try. And she's a great kid, and let's see what we can do. But I also realized that I have in each one of those relationships, I've gone into it, and there's a little voice in my head that says, well, this guy isn't the right guy for you, but you should date him anyway.
Yeah. But the thing is, when you don't trust yourself, how do you trust that voice? Because you're not sure if it's true, or should I listen to it? I can understand that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to differentiate when you really don't have this internal belief and trust in yourself. It's really hard to navigate that, because is that intuition? Is that this beautiful little voice telling you, or is it just fear? Is that, you know what I mean? So that's, yeah. So, and so I can understand that. So anyways, I really feel the other question I had when I read your application was, you said for the last year, you've been working on self-awareness and kind of personal growth and stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it has been, a lot of it started on Instagram.
Amazing.
Yes. Following Kelsey's account.
Awesome. And that's so cool.
And others like it. And then I started reading some books that were recommended, whether it was on social media or whatever the case may be, about personal growth and development. I've signed up for a couple different webinars that I've taken, both about self and relationships, and online, 2 online courses that I've done as well.
And how has that helped you?
It's definitely made me a lot more aware of patterns and things, and my issue is actually doing the work and applying what I'm learning and reading in my real life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I ask. I would say it's kind of like sitting in a hot tub. It feels really good, and then when you're out, you're cold again. Like there's like that's something that there's it takes. That's where I think challenge comes in. Like because it feels so good to read memes and self-awareness is awesome. Like it's cool, but there's also a level of self-awareness that sucks. And it's almost like we'd like to stay in the fun part, like take workshops and stuff. And I'm all over that, but there's got to be something else. The other thing I did have a question. You'd mentioned that there's some things about this guy. And when I think about this guy, I think about all your relationships. That's just how I think. And I think it's a clue to everything. And we always make it about an intimate relationship. And some of that is learned myself just sitting here talking to these women. Like I'm like, wow, like we try to solve the toughest, most emotionally charged one when there's other relationships that are way easier to work in and practice your craft on relationships. And so I feel like this relationship is a clue to who you are and how you deal with all your relationships in some way. And so just a couple of questions here on something that's really helped me huge. I think it might be something to think about is how honest you are, first of all, with yourself, which is a hard one, but how honest you are with the relationships you're in. I think a lot of problems happen when you don't speak your truth in it. And so like when you were talking, you said there's some times where you don't like how he parented, right. Or there were some times like there's a conversation that needs to happen in relationships, which is going to bring conflict, which is going to bring upsetness. It's going to challenge the other person, which is the actual beautiful part of relationship. And I think that's avoided at all costs. And I think eventually they just break apart because never got your truth out. Do you have those conversations? Did you have, like, how are those conversations? Like, really think about it, like honest conversations where you were not like, if I say this, I'm going to make them do this, or just to speak your truth without any expectation.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle that I've had. I struggle with confrontation in all aspects. And one thing that he really challenged me on was, constantly asking why. And I would say, okay, because I don't like this or that. And he'd say, why? And he would just keep trying to get to the bottom of it. So we did have some of those conversations where I gave specific examples, like to give one. So he was
just 1 second, I think I just want to jump on this because I don't want to go down to all his stuff. Which is fine. I don't mean to stop or interrupt, but just kind of a gut thing. It's like, he pulled it out of you though, is what I'm trying to get to. So that's what I mean. Like, it's almost like he's like, come on, tell me, be open, tell me, like there's this strong, and I'm not saying he's the right guy, wrong guy. That's for you to figure out. But it sounds like he's the wrong guy according to what you're saying. But the thing is, there's this really interesting, it's like, oh, I kind of told him my stuff. Like, I know what it's like being a guy and a girl doesn't talk to me. And when I need to know the goods, like I'm good. No, I'm fine. Like, that is the most frustrating thing in a relationship you can ever imagine. Like, I'm so married and I'm so deep and so close with my wife now. I literally can walk in the house and feel it. Like, I don't even need to talk to her. And I look at her and go, you're going to play the game, or are we going to just actually talk about something here? Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, well, see you in 5 minutes. I'm coming back because what's going on? Like, and we've really brought up the honesty. So I think there's something like this could be the big takeaway for just this moment, is that how honest are you for real? And now I'm going to give you something that's a little bit tough to swallow. And then I think I pass it to Kelsey. I think she's probably got something kicking here. But the thing is, I'm thinking about this. This is one of those things, because I used to be quite a controlling man. Okay. Like, really. And it was not that I was like, I'm a good guy that had a lot of bad shit happen to him. And I feel like I know how to control people, even like, and I don't anymore. And it's like this. So I can see like how easy people are to be controlled, manipulated. See, it's kind of weird because there's a gift of influence I have. And if I'm a rotten soul, it's going to be controlling. So sometimes these controlling, manipulative people are actually influencers that can really impact people in a good way. It just kind of depends who the person is. And so when you say you're scared of confrontation, it's the easiest way to control someone. So easy. It's so easy. And the problem is the people that you'll attract, not just men, if you don't get over the confrontation issue you have, you'll get people that'll control you if they have any bit of rotten soul. And they're good. Like, they're always nice. And so I always think sometimes it's got to be a bit of a harsh advice. Like, man, if you want to be controlled, like that's where like it's almost emergency, Crissa. Like it's emergency. Like you need to speak your truth. Like you're not going to get a guy that is going to be just the most, like you might, but odds are you got this subconscious flag that says, I don't want confrontation, boom, can control you. Because all I got to do is get mad. That's all I got to do is get mad or disappointed in you. I got to just be like, well, you know what? Oh no, don't worry about it. Like it's so easy. So what does it feel like when I say that?
I don't know. It's, I totally get what you're saying. And it's tough. It is. And the
tough
thing
to hear or tough to like, what do you mean?
Yeah. It's tough for me to deal with because I know, like I said, I know that confrontation is something that I struggle with and and I have it associated with negative, and I know it doesn't necessarily have to be negative to, use your terms like speak your truth, but I have this thought that like, I don't want to be a burden to anyone. And so sort of stepping up and saying that, like saying what's on my mind or speaking my truth is like, okay, well, something as silly as, well, I don't want to interrupt this TV show that you're watching. So, but I'm not sure if you'll care that I'm interrupting it. So I'm just gonna, I'll wait until a commercial break and then try, or, something like that. If that kind of gives you
it's so normal. It's so normal. And I don't think we're taught how to deal with that. Kelsey, I'm sitting here like talking and I know, there's one story I want to just say just happened 2 days ago that really is relevant. And this is actually yesterday. Okay. My wife and I were talking and she goes, you know what? And she's just overwhelmed. And that's what happens sometimes. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I have no clue how to help this girl. And I'm like just going to be with her. And like all the Kelsey training kicks in and I'm like, don't solve the problem. Like just sit here. I have no clue what's going on. No, and I was just listening to her truly and trying to feel her heart a bit. And honestly, I'm just letting her be. Like I can't solve it. Like she's just kind of frustrated. And she goes, you know what? If there's one thing I would want to get off my plate, I would want my meals taken care of. I hate cooking. Okay. I don't want to do that. Okay. So now listen to this. You want a man, right? You want a relationship. It's kind of the same lesson. We're driving. We hung out with Renee, driving around, and all of a sudden she's texting, and I'm just watching her text, and I can feel the energy change or something going on. I just have this intuition. I'm just watching. Like, who are we talking to? Oh, just my sister, Becky. And and she says something about like Renee's back's been hurting, and she's just talking to my sister, and my sister goes, oh, you know what I could do for you? Why don't I make you a bunch of meals same day? Okay. And what happened was, what did Renee do? Oh, no, I don't want to be a bother. And I'm like, so I like kind of piped up. I said, what was that about? Oh, making meals. I said, are you kidding this? You just freaking created exactly what you wanted. And then you turned it down. I said, you're confusing the universe. And so it's like, this is that thing. I don't want to be a bother is literally the thing that might be stopping this beautiful energy coming into your life because I want to be a bother. And I had to share that because it just happened. And so I said, Renee, call back. I said, text Becky back, get the meals. I said, this is the gift. This is exactly what you wanted. So she became a bother, but she let that flow through her. And so I don't really I just thought, man, it's a fitting time to kind of share that when you say that. So anyways, I just wanted to drop that in for you. So
I love that because that often happens, where we say that we want something and then we get it and we're like, ooh, no, I can't receive that. Who am I to receive that? And so
exactly how yeah, totally.
Yeah. And Crissa, it's so fucking normal to feel resistance to receptivity. So if we kind of blow it up into a bigger picture here of masculine and feminine dynamics, and I'm not talking about men and women, I'm talking about masculine energy, feminine energy. Right. Our culture is more masculine driven. So the value system is more masculine in the sense of it's about productivity, forward movement, innovation, doing things, getting shit done. So that's a very forward moving energy. The problem with that, because it's not balanced with the feminine, is that our receptivity muscles as a culture suck. Everyone's trying to give, everyone's trying to move forward, but like there's no one to be receptive because we're not trained how to be receptive. We're trained that receptivity is weakness.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can be interwoven with conflict avoidance because, you know, to be strong and like say, this is what's true for me. What that means is we might have to receive the truth that this person is not our fit. You know, and to be able to really stand in our conviction like that, we have to be balanced in both our masculine and feminine energies. Our feminine energy is that energy that allows receptivity. And whenever you're learning something, that's your feminine energy in action. And then whenever you action on something, that's your masculine. So it's already active in some ways, but as, you know, culturally speaking, it's not something that we are really given a solid training ground in. And then as women, like, where our dominant hardwiring is going to be the feminine. So if we are outside of that and we're trying to fit on this masculine track, productivity, move forward, you know, just don't have a ton of feelings or like, don't be a burden. Like that is very masculine in energy. The feminine takes up space. So I like to think of the masculine as like a structure, and then the feminine is the free-flowing particles that just like bounce around inside that container. But without that container, it goes chaotic. And so there's probably a balancing of energy that is about to kind of come into your field, meaning getting in touch with your feeling nature and knowing that that is actually not a burden. But the tough part about that is that we have to come up against everything from our childhood that programmed that into your psyche. There is someone or something from early on in your experience of being alive. So usually our first relational imprints are our family of origin. And that's where we learn what relationships are. And we learn what they are not. We learn what love is. We learn what love is not. And so there's an imprint that happened in those formative years that gave you a template that says being emotional in nature is a burden. Being conflict avoidant is optimal. Now, that can happen in many different ways for many different reasons. You know, if we grow up in a house where there's someone who is really intense, you know, we may, you know, grow up to be adults who are like, I'm never going to be like that. And then we're super passive. Or the exact opposite can happen of like, I'm never letting someone treat me like that again. And I'm going to take on this very fierce warrior protective energy. But it's always rooted back in our psyche. And so we want to begin the curious exploration. And I'm not suggesting we have to deep dive on that today because it's a lot to even like take in at first. But that's where I really invite you to start looking. Like, where did you learn that conflict was toxic? Because, and it very well is a valid thing that you witnessed. If you witnessed that there was a connection, that conflict was toxic, that's probably exactly what was modeled for you. But that doesn't make it a blanket truth.
Right.
Because when you are with someone who has balanced his masculine and feminine energy, and you've balanced your masculine and feminine energy, conflict becomes a bridge to deeper intimacy.
Totally.
But it's not this explosive type of conflict. It's more like, when that happened, I noticed that like there was a shift in me. I noticed that I felt some tension in my body. And I'm curious what that's about. And when you said this, it really, it didn't land for me. And I want to understand what you meant when you said this, or I want to understand what was behind when you did this. So it's a much more curious approach instead of how fights are normally modeled or conflict is normally modeled, which is pretty explosive. Mm-hmm. You know, like when you see a couple fighting in a movie, they're not having this conscious dialogue. Mm. And when we often come from an imprinting in our family system, if there was like a high degree of conflict, or it was complete conflict avoidance, like maybe that was what you experienced as well. So you're just literally playing out what you saw modeled for you. And when that happens, like we literally just don't have context for it. We don't have context how to be in conflict and have that lead us to a deeper sense of intimacy. But if we resist the feelings of discomfort in our own body, so if we have this very adversarial relationship to, let's say, negative emotions, which a lot of people do. They're like, especially in the personal development world, and this drives me bonkers. Like it's actually one of the things that really irritates me about this industry is this saturation on being positive and happy all the time. It's bullshit.
It's avoidance.
It's not the truth. The truth is you are a human with this massive range of emotional experience. But if we're dissociated from our own anger, which tends to be the case for a lot of women, most women are very disassociated from their anger. And as a result, it comes out in passive aggressive ways, or we turn it around on ourselves and we attack ourselves internally. So being with yourself is no longer a pleasurable or safe place to be. Because when we are alone with ourselves, it is like a firing squad. And it's so uncomfortable to be with our inner critic when it's going off the rails like that. So part of the work, especially to transform that imprint of someone who, I very much believe that if your intuition was picking up that he was manipulative and there was some things that you couldn't trust about him, that was valid. That there's a good reason why you were picking that information up. And like Ben said, it's now a process of learning to create that intimacy with yourself and your own range of emotion, and learning how to embrace conflict in a new expansive way, and how to do that. Like the how to do that is key. It's not like, oh, I just set this intention and then all of a sudden it's transformed. No. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like you got to actually get the education and work with a guided professional, like someone who can guide you through that and guide you through that rewiring, that transformation process, and give you a step-by-step to integrate it. And so you need those three pieces to transform that part. But when you do that, like that ability to discern the voice, and to discern whether this is the voice of your truth or the voice of your fear masquerading as your truth. Because once you have that distinction and you know how differently those feel in your body, you're recalibrating, and you're coming into a deeper sense of alignment, the more intimacy you create with all of your emotions, which means when you're feeling angry, you got to own it.
That's right.
Even if it's just to yourself. And to know that your anger is valid, to know that it's not okay to be mistreated, and yes, we do have, some responsibility in the matter of putting ourselves into those relationships. So we understand that, my part to play is that I agreed to be in a relationship knowing somewhere in my gut that it wasn't quite right. That's my responsibility. That's what I can own on my side of the fence. But I'm not responsible for his behavior. I'm not responsible for any toxic or abusive behavior that's coming from his side of the fence. That's not mine to own. But as a caregiver, which I hear that you are, you're nurturing, you're caring, like you're very giving, and that is your strong suit, but it will also be your Achilles heel. It will be the thing that if given to the right person, someone who is also a giver, who wants to pour into you as much as you want to pour into him, girlfriend, that is going to be the most extraordinary relationship that you could ever dream of. One where you're not dealing with explosive conflict. Okay? That we don't need to be in a relationship where we're constantly fighting to learn the value of, positive conflict resolution. But we do have to make contact with all of these pieces that we might be disowning about ourselves. So if you're noticing that there are things that you couldn't trust about him, what does that lead you to understand about what you still refuse to trust within yourself? Where did you first learn not to trust yourself? Because if there is this experience of being emotionally manipulated, that's not a new thing. That's not something that just shows up one day.
And it's farther back than the 3 other guys, for sure.
Yeah, this is like early on. It's either in the family of origin, or it's someone in your early experience. So it could be a teacher who maybe emotionally invalidated you. It could be a babysitter. It could be a family friend. It could be an aunt, an uncle, grandparent. Like, it could be your parents. But there's someone, there was some point where your emotional experience would have been invalidated and said, no, that's not what you're actually feeling. That's not what's true. And then it was like, in the mind of a child, like, a child doesn't have that discernment muscle to think critically and challenge the authority of its caregivers. And so what happens is that you're at this beautiful, like, I love that you just turned 28, because you're literally in your Saturn return right now. I don't know if you're big into astrology, but if you're not, I'll give you the little Cole's notes here. Saturn is like a 2.5-year transit where you're literally going to be reviewing everything that is no longer working that was developed in the first 28 years of your life. So it's giving you an opportunity to get these things on track.
Mm-hmm. Which is ironic, you're on this show.
I know. It's so great. Like, it's like, you're like, okay, I feel this coming. Like, I know I got to get on track, and I know I got to transform this. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I know that, like, I need something. And so this, like, literally marks a 2-year window where you're going to be exploring all of these pieces. But I promise you, you are going to come through it. And when you come through, there is going to be a clarity and a certainty of who you are and what you stand for in the world. That does not mean that the transit is all like sunshine and rainbows and like so much fun the whole time, because it will bring you up against the things that you have either been avoiding dealing with, or you didn't have the proper tools or support to deal with. And so if you know that that's coming, you can work with it differently. You don't have to fight it. And the Saturn return, Saturn is all about slowing down. So it's the planet of restriction and discipline. So if we apply discipline in transforming these old, outdated ways of being and ways of relating, what you see is this beautiful breakthrough into expansion once that transit is done. And everyone goes through this. And it's literally setting you up for the next 28 years of your life. So you don't have to carry this with you anymore if you don't want to. If you use the next 2 years to do that self-development. So you started with the self-awareness. Very important. It got you here. And now it's about taking that deeper and actually doing the work. You know, and sometimes we don't step into the arena of doing the work until it's painful enough. We need it to get real uncomfortable, and we're like, oh, I can't even handle myself anymore. And I just need this to change. And it's uncomfortable enough that I'm willing to get my butt on the court of my life and start playing a different game. And, you know, there are so many ways that you can go about doing that work. You know, there are so many amazing teachers who can guide you through that process. You know, and so like Ben and I are 2 teachers who do work in this field, but you know, it's not limited to us. The key is to find someone that you feel safe with, that you feel resonance with, who's also gone through what you've gone through to some degree. They understand like the discomfort of, you know, not being able to speak your truth. Maybe the discomfort of not even knowing what that truth is. You know, because at least for me, like when I've been flooded in the past, I'm like, I don't even know what my truth is. How can I tell you if I don't even know? Because I'm like, the way that my body will work when it gets flooded is that everything else goes offline. Like I literally lose all capacity for rational thought when I get triggered, when I get scared, and in my family of origin, like my parents were pretty calm and pretty peaceful up until about 7th grade. And then they started having a lot of problems and a lot of conflict. And so they would fight every night, like screaming and yelling only after we went to bed. So what I learned was that, you have to keep your problems hidden. You can't let that out. And that there was something that was so wrong about them fighting that it had to be done at night while we were sleeping. And we couldn't witness that. But then there was also like this sharpness and this passive aggressive, like banter between the two of them throughout the day. Like, I don't remember my parents ever really being affectionate with each other. I remember my dad like pursuing my mom, and my dad wanting that affection and wanting that love. And my mom was like stone cold at that point in time for whatever reason, but I didn't get that modeling of how to fight cleanly. And so what I noticed, like in a relationship in my mid-20s, was that I was starting to recycle their way of relating. So I literally heard some of the same things come out of my mouth that I had heard my mom say to my dad. And I'm like, uh-oh, like, shit, I don't want to be my mom. Like, I love my mom. Like, she's so great. But like, I do not want to replicate their relationship. And this was around that time. It was around 25, 26, where I started to notice, oh God, like I'm literally becoming my parents. And like, I'm really replaying a lot of these patterns. And then boom, Saturn Return hits, and it's time to do all of that work and really start to look at those patterns and like understand that they happen for a good reason. We develop them for a good reason. But once we know that they're there, once we know that something's not working and we continue to go forward, like we're literally making a choice to commit to our smallness. We're literally making a choice to not step into our greatness, because we know that there's something so much more expansive that's available, but we're making a choice not to go in that direction. So you're at this very powerful choice point. And I know it's so confronting, and there's a lot to consider there. But it's one of those things that with the right support, with the right guidance, you can easily transform that in a relatively short amount of time. It won't take 28 years to undo all of that and reinstall something new.
Crissa, what are you I'm curious. There's like so much there, like so much. I'm just sitting here so curious to see, like, is there a question that's popping in your head, a comment? Is there something that you've got that's like maybe an aha moment, or even just a simple question? Like, kind of curious to see what's it's so good. Like, it's so good. Kelsey's dropping like bombs of truth. And I'm just like, what's Crissa taking in? That's my honest question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're just, well, spot on, and I'm just thinking a lot about my parents and my brother too, my relationship with my brother. I think a lot of what you're saying can be related to that, and I can relate to what you're saying too, where my parents would argue behind closed doors and a lot of passive aggressive comments. And to this day, my parents are still married. They're, 30, over 35 years married, but, or together rather, but they, but my mom to this day, if they get annoyed with each other, my mom will throw out these passive aggressive, like comments saying, I'm an idiot, I don't know better, or that's right, I don't, like, stuff like that. And I did the same thing in my last relationship. I was doing that. I was parroting her, and he called me out on it and was like, "What is this behavior? Like, what are you doing? You can't do this." Yeah. And then I realized some work that needed to be done there. And then a lot of my childhood was spent trying to measure up with my brother, and then he and I would fight a lot too. He's 2 years older than I am, and it was sort of just always like, oh, look what he can do, like show off kind of stuff. And I felt like I was always like, oh, I don't have anything special to attribute, you know. So those are the things that are kind of going through my head.
That's cool. There's so much there. Like, yeah, you described my childhood as well. Like my sister figured out how to work the family, and I shouldn't say it like that. Like she figured out how she had figured out how to perform really well, and I couldn't figure it out. It's like in a situation where, like, I just felt like annoying. Like there was one video that I was sitting there at Christmas, and we read the Christmas story out of the Bible when we were kids. And it was like, that was just the tradition. And so my sister would, like, okay, Ben, time to read your part. And I still can't read. And so it's like, I'm like, and you see in the video, my sister looks at me and goes, my dad does the same thing. I like looking at this thing. I'm like, holy crap, that was a child I was living. And then my sister would grab the Bible and just read the whole thing. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that really helped me understand why I feel like a piece of shit. And so, but I think about, I want to leave you with stuff that you can take. That's why I keep on going, hey, where are you at? What are you doing? Like, it's such good stuff. Like, we can talk and give like truth bombs all day, which I think is really, really important. But I'm really curious to see, like, what can you like say, I went on this thing, not because I don't care about this, our call. I just want to be like, this moment, is there any way to like leave you with something that kind of says, you know what, that really works? And so like so I don't know how totally, I'm not, if I can't, that doesn't happen, I'm totally okay with that. That's where my head goes to check in. But I just think about one thing. I'd like to give you a tactic, like a bit of a how-to that's helped me a little bit. Like, I had a lot of self-worth issues and a lot of like, similar, like you live in an environment where you're just not measuring up any ever, right? I realized very quickly, going through a lot of pain in my life and a lot of recovery and a lot of different things, is that the only way out, in my opinion, is through the pain. And what you would call discomfort in like making someone uncomfortable, being a bother, I think that is actually your way out. And I feel like if you can, like, instead of biting off like, man, my childhood was so massive, like Kelsey said, you need someone to walk through that with you. I think it's really important to really own and understand your story and to unpackage that. And if you do that all at once, it could be a volcano, and it is really good to have support. But I'd like to give you a little nugget, at least something that like, and I just think about that feeling of being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if I were you, I would practice making people uncomfortable. Because if you can get used to that, all of a sudden you can't be controlled. All of a sudden you can speak your truth. All of a sudden you maybe walk with a straighter back, and you realize your brain will have to kind of catch up, because your brain tells you when you make people uncomfortable, it's not good. And that's just old, just like Kelsey said, it's all just program. If you want to reprogram it, you kind of got to go through a process of reprogramming, but instead of doing the whole life, just practice making people feel uncomfortable, and then just absolutely feel what happens in you. Don't judge it, because you're just going to wreck it. Judgment just stops the process. Like, oh, idiot, there I am going again, making, like, I can't even figure this. Well, don't do that. You're just going to wreck the whole process. Like, it just won't go anywhere. Every time you do that, you're just like, okay, reset. And then don't judge yourself for judging yourself. It's just a big trap, right? So when you make someone uncomfortable, I would feel the pain of it and sit in it. And then I would do it again. And sometimes it's going to be like, shit, I took that way too far. But you are going to train your new thoughts in your brain to support your emotions. Because right now your brain's working against them. It's working against moving forward, right? So I feel like if you can just lean into that a little bit, like when you have a chance to just and don't do it in the big ones. Don't go right to your brother and your mom and dad. Like, I'm going to make it. I did that stuff. It's really hard that way. And so I would say with your friend, or you're out for dinner, or something where you're just like, do I want to do this? Or just something where your truth is not going to be, it's going to be annoying, or you're going to be the one that doesn't vote in. Like, be that person and just practice. Because what's the loss on one or two little dinky ones? What it is, it trains your brain, because your brain's going to go, oh, that wasn't too bad. And that's the message you got to give your brain. Then you've got hope, right? But if you keep the pattern all the time running away from being uncomfortable or making people uncomfortable, it's just going to be the bit of a loop, I call it. What do you hear me saying with that? I'm just curious.
So I've actually kind of been starting to do that in terms of my current dating life, because I have admittedly ghosted on some dates that I've gone on to avoid confrontation. But recently, with 2 dates that I had gone on, I initially did like, okay, well, he's a nice guy, but I didn't feel like a spark. So, but I'll still talk to him, because I was avoiding confrontation and I didn't want to hurt his feelings. And so recently what I did do was, I just said, hey, look, we had fun, but I just don't think you and I are the best match. And just like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Like, rip the Band-Aid.
Awesome. Good for you. That's so good. And it's such a big deal for someone that doesn't say that. It's like you're probably heart attacks happening. You're like, holy shit. And it comes across like, oh, okay, no big deal. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I did have one person kind of freak out a little bit in response.
I'm glad that happened, actually. That's good. Yeah. Because that's not too bad either, really, is it?
So, yeah. So then I as he was still sending messages, I blocked his number so I couldn't see what else he was saying that was negative, because I said, no, because then I'll start second guessing myself.
Which is self-respect, though. That's just self-respect.
Yeah. So I didn't appreciate. He was like, "Well, don't do this, and you should do that." And I said, "No, sorry, I don't want to hear this."
Cheers. Bye.
Yeah, I feel like when people react poorly like that, it just confirms what your intuition already knew.
Totally.
Like, if someone can really honor your no, that is a sign of a good human who you have some degree of alignment with. But if people can't honor your no, when you say, you know what, I'm just really clear that this is not a yes for me. Like, let's say you have super clarity on your non-negotiables, and you hear, in date number 1, like, let's say one of your non-negotiables is, under no circumstances will I date a smoker. Like, that is just a hard no for me. And then you find out on date number 1, he's like, hey, I'm just going to go out for a smoke. And you're like, okay, so I'm clear that this is not a yes for me. And, he comes back and you're like, okay, I've had such a great time, meeting you and having dinner or whatever. And I'm so clear that, like, the next relationship that I'm in will be with someone who isn't a smoker, and I'm not judging that that's a life choice, and like, you do you, but it's just not a yes for me. And someone who has, done their work can be like, oh, I can get that. I can understand, and I think I probably need to be with someone who is maybe a smoker too, so that there's alignment there. But someone who hasn't done their work will be like there's so many amazing other things about me, and you're actually going to like lose this opportunity for like this really amazing person.
You're lost.
You're lost. Like, all this bullshit. And you're like, wow, thank you for just like amplifying what my intuition was already picking up on, like, that you are not a yes for me.
So Kelsey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you believe in the one?
No, I do not.
Good.
I was wondering.
The reason why is Crissa had that in her application. She wants the one, and it's not Crissa, it's everyone. And I just like, I can tell you right now, my wife and I, we're not the one. like at every level, like once we're 5-6 years in, like even 5 years ago, Renee's like, or even 5 years ago or so, she's like, you're not the one. I didn't think you'd be like this. Like, holy crap. But it was like now that we've gone through really hard work, it's like, wow, now we're jiving. Like, it is like, wow. And so I feel like I'm a 50 out of how many years I'm married, 15 or 16 years. And I feel like, so I'm coming at it from a different perspective of like, I just came through the battle. I kind of like and I just came through that growth process. And it's like, how much, and this is an honest question, Kelsey, because how much of it is like, could like 2 people grow together? And even if they're not a match, they're not the one. And then like, how does that play out? And because that's my experience, because I worked at it.
The thing with you and Renee though, is that there's compatibility there. So when you're looking for a partner, like I don't believe that there's this one person who's like perfectly orchestrated just for you.
Yeah.
I think that there are many people who you would have like incredible alignment with. True, and the problem is not that, you know, you have to sort through all of these mismatches to find the one needle in the haystack.
That's how it's perceived. That's how your all relationship coaching is. Like,
oh God, it's the worst.
Gotta keep looking. This one, nope, missed that one. It's like, well, that one's not bad. Like, I could lock that one down. Like, that's a good one. Like, I feel sometimes that's like, what are you waiting for? Like,
well, and that's just it. Like, it's knowing yourself enough to know what your non-negotiables are, and knowing yourself to know what are those compatible core values that as you grow, shift, change, and evolve will bond that relationship, because you are not going to be the same woman 5 years from now.
Okay, so on that note, this is the thing. My non-negotiables 5 years ago were different. It's like, okay. So this is the thing, right? I'm throwing you there. Let's hear some good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm getting my own. Sorry, Chris, I'm getting a little coaching myself. Sorry, sabotage. I mean, I'm hijacking it.
So the way that I do non-negotiables, and maybe this is different from how other people do them, but I do them based on core values. And so my core values, yes, they may shift and transform, like, because the things that I valued when I was 20 were not the same things that I value now, and that's okay. But one of the things that I put in my non-negotiables is a growth-oriented mindset. So having that in the mix, you know, whether, like, I obviously need to embody that, but also my partner, that one piece, you know, someone who has a fixed mindset, when you're starting to shift and change and grow, that's going to cause so much trouble in a relationship. But if that goes into your non-negotiable of growth-oriented, self-aware, like those types of pieces make it workable as you both grow and shift and change, because that's inevitable. It's going to happen.
We're going to evolve.
You are. And most people, though, when they do their non-negotiables, it's very similar to the list that they make. Like, he needs to be like 6'2" and blonde hair and
tall, dark, and handsome. Well,
like screwed, all this shit that doesn't actually tell you anything about someone's relational capacity. Like,
do you find that with a lot of your clients, Kelsey? Like, is that all of them?
Yeah. Like, there's so much unlearning that has to be done. Like, in the year of love, that's basically what we do for a year, is we unlearn all of those paradigms that are actually blocking the true love that you deserve and that you desire, and like rewiring with belief systems that actually set you up to succeed. And one of the things is, and this is what you'll have to be very careful of, Crissa, because I already heard it in your language pattern, of he's a nice guy, but there's no spark. That could potentially really work against you, because there's a difference between what we have been taught is love, which is like this insane like chemistry and like off the charts, spark, 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 butterflies all the time. You like, and as you go deeper down the rabbit hole of doing this work, what you'll find is that that is actually a function of a wounding pattern selecting its perfect mate. It is not a sign. Say that again? Say that again. So the spark, the chemistry, that butterflies, that, oh my God, I can't live without this person, is actually the wounding pattern selecting its perfect mate. Meaning that your wounds match his, and you know how to rub each other's raw spots in a way where your needs never get met. And that it keeps reinforcing that old idea, that old identity, that old self-image, that I'm a burden, I'm too much, I give, but I don't get given to, and like I get taken advantage of is probably in there somewhere along the way. Like, there are all these old stories that it will reinforce. And as we do the healing, the internal work to create that emotional intimacy with yourself, kind of understand where that's come from and work to transform it, what we find is that we do our choosing from a very different place. So when someone comes along who is kind, and there's not that initial like, we're like, ooh, you know what this is? This is a sign of potential alignment. This is a sign of someone that I actually could get my needs met with. This is someone who, you know, and maybe you find out through the dating process that they're not your person. They don't meet other, you know, of your non-negotiables. But at least give those types of connections a little bit more space before cutting them off.
I love that, Kelsey. From where I sit, I'm not dating at all. Like I feel like an old guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm so lucky to be married because to go through all the swiping left and right. I don't know. I probably swiped the wrong way. I don't know. Like, is there swipe up? Like I hate swiping the same way. I might just start swiping down. I don't know. But it's cool. I love hearing that, Kelsey, especially that you're in with so many different like people are dating and you're right into that. The idea that it, like when you meet, it's that I see that like even on all the shows like The Bachelor and all these things, there's like a good quality dude. And it's like, why aren't you going for this guy? And they go for the guy that's like so sexually charged and all of this. I'm like, there it is. Is that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like it's so obvious from me looking from where I look at going, like you're but I love that idea that you're attracted to wounded, you know, match. I think that's a really cool line. I think that's someday we'll, you know, we need to talk a lot more about that. I think that's a really interesting thing. So, but yeah, no, I love that you're bringing that up. And Crissa, do you identify with that? Like, are you looking for that spark? Is that how you're thinking? I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So Crissa, I want to say this one thing, Ben, before,
go ahead,
because I just want to make this distinction that your aligned match does not mean that you have to give up being really crazy attracted to your person.
Yeah, that's still really good, Kelsey. Actually,
it'll still be there. Like it's not like you have to pick like the dud in the corner and you're like, okay, I guess this guy will meet my needs. But
I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I guess
this is so great. Okay, not to slam.
I know I'm totally like judging a certain.
That's just that's just not my zone of alignment. But the thing is the kind guy, and I like to move away from nice guy because nice guy is like the guy that will do all the pleasing things to keep you happy, but not have a backbone of his own. Like that's the guy version of the experience that you're having. And so what we want to look for is the kind guy. So the guy that is, you know, attuned to his own emotional world, but considerate of yours. Because I heard that consideration is likely a strong core value for you in a couple of the things that you were saying throughout today. And so we're going to want to look for a guy that also considers your feelings. That's important to him. It's important to him that you feel understood. It's important to him that you feel respected. It's important to him that, you know, you're clear about where he stands. And that doesn't mean that he's a pushover. It means that he can stand up and like kind of push back if you know that old like MO of like some passive aggressive or self-deprecating comment comes out, he'll be like, actually, no, you don't get to talk to me like that. That's actually not okay. And tell me what's actually going on here. So you got a little bit of a taste of that with the old partner. And I'm not suggesting he's your person. And I think that we could unpack that for days. But you know, the kind guy who has a backbone, he's not going to, on date number 1, be like fireworks and this is my guy, like this is the one. Like it's going to be revealed over time. So this would be my protocol for you, is to really start to embrace the whole 3 to 9 months of dating before giving a commitment. And in that dating phase, you're actually testing for core value alignment. You're testing to see if you guys have enough juice in the mix to actually build a solid foundation, which means you're going to have to navigate conflict at some point.
Yeah, you almost want it. Like you almost want to see how that's going to go down. Yeah. How many people get together and be like, oh shit, he fights bad. Like
exactly.
I'd rather see it. Like, are you going to be able to have a conversation?
Yeah, well, like, and that's when you know someone that can be attuned to your needs when your needs don't get met. And so there's obviously a way in which you have to learn how to bring that up and learn the process to do that you feel strong and that your truth is coming out, but you also do it in a way that invites the other person to hear you.
And that's how you teach them. Like there's the teaching that happens. It's like, if we had a relationship here, like say, Crissa, you started just like insulting me. I'm like, why are you insulting me? And you're going to be like, oh, Okay, so I can't insult him. Like, it's almost as simple as that. It's like, oh, well, oh, okay. That didn't really like that. I'm cool. I'm into you. But what was that about? Like, you can do it. And if the guy doesn't handle that very well, I don't know. I think that's the where to go. Like, that's where speaking your truth and just like almost like there's a great line by Wayne Dyer. Do you know Wayne Dyer? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Great.
Okay. No, like Crissa.
Change your life. Yeah.
Just remember, I told you first. So, because you're going to be like, oh my goodness, Kelsey told me about this Wayne Dyer guy. And I'm like, no, it was me. So anyways, are you kidding me? Okay. So I'm going to send you some links. Okay. Like it'll be like, he's the master of all personal growth. He's helped me in so many levels. Like
so good.
Like why I do what I do today. So
do you want to hear something cool about alignment and like the universe kind of confirming what Ben is saying?
What Ben is saying, yes.
Yes. So this literally the group coaching call of the Year of Love that I just got off of right before this call, the module that they are on is called Releasing Excuses, and it's literally based on Wayne Dyer's book.
Excuses Be Gone.
Excuses Be Gone.
Yeah.
Like that's literally the vibration that I've
never mentioned Wayne Dyer ever on our show either.
No,
so I think it's just a flow. Like I almost feel like it's so exciting. I'm getting used to it. Like, yeah, there it is again. Yeah. Like I almost feel like, yep, there it is. Yep. Like almost like used to be like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like it just, I think there's a flow where you're just like, yeah, that's what happens. Like there's a magnetic match, next, So anyways, Crissa, look into it for real. I do believe that's a direction that I feel like more bigger than just Kelsey and I. Like it makes sense. That'll be like massive. He's got 50, 100 books or something, but I can give you a couple names. Like Excuses Be Gone is really good.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thoughts, change your life. But I think Excuses Be Gone. I think let's go with that one.
I think that's the best one.
I think that one there'll really get you to own your life and really take responsibility for what's there and let go of it. You don't need to.
Can I give like one how-to before?
Love to. That's what I'd love.
Okay. So kind of
before what?
Before you say what you say.
Okay. Because I thought we better check to see what the before is because it might be good.
So just to kind of pair with Ben's how-to, so he gave you a nice practical step. I'm going to give you kind of the feminine version of that so that you can play with balancing the masculine and feminine energy, and they're so related. They're very complementary. So part of being able to take up space and speak your truth and make people uncomfortable is learning to physically open your body. So for the next 30 days, I want you to prioritize like uncrossing your arms and rolling your shoulders back and standing up real tall. No matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, shoulders back, and you're gonna be like, oh, I'm so exposed. Am I being like, am I like pushing my tits out there? Like, no, like you want shoulders back, and like that's gonna open and command a certain energy from you.
Cool.
And when you go through your day with your shoulders back and down, arms uncrossed, and you're naturally gonna start looking ahead or looking up. When you change your physiology, it's going to help trip up that part of your brain that's like, oh, this is different. Oh, I feel much more powerful. When I feel much more powerful, I'm more connected to my truth in this moment. But if you notice that you're like closed in, it's going to be much harder. Like, and especially when our shoulders come up like this and like we're kind of closed in like that, it's harder to breathe, first of all. And when you can't breathe properly, you're not going to be able to regulate your thoughts and your emotions. And so by shoulders down and back and open, you can breathe deeper, which calms your system down, which allows you to make contact with your truth and then take the action that Ben was suggesting of like, yeah, test those waters. Like someone says that this is how they think politically and you actually don't agree and you got those shoulders back. Say what your truth is.
And you can do it with kindness. You don't have to like.
And it doesn't have to be combative. Like you can make someone uncomfortable by acknowledging them with positivity. Like people get so uncomfortable with that. And then you're going to feel the discomfort in your body of acknowledging them and like they don't know how to handle that. And so you can play with it on both spectrums of like really challenging people. And like there will be times where that's really appropriate. And then try the balance route of making people uncomfortable through your acknowledgement and appreciation of them. And so as you play with those, but also include the physiology, include the body, because if you don't include the body, it stays up here and you can only get so far.
It's really good, Kelsey.
Like, you got to get into the body. This is very much a somatic process, which means like anchoring it in the body, like those memories of being small or, you know, not taking up space or being a burden, that's actually stored in your cellular DNA. And so in order to change that, we have to actually reconfigure the cells and like signal in the body to send the signal to the brain. And then the brain, like, they start to work in tandem, where you can work on the mindset and then that'll change the body. And like, so there's a couple different ways in which you can do that rewiring, but those two things work real well together. And I just wanted to give you that very practical thing that's free and you can do it now. And like, you don't need to be anywhere or working with anyone at any point in time to like roll your shoulders back, open that chest, take a deep breath, and just drop in to what's true for you in this moment.
And if what sense? You're sorry, go ahead.
I just asked her if that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
It'd be cool to, so what you're saying about the astrology stuff too, is that this is the time of discipline and things you're saying, right? Like to create new, so it's just interesting to think of taking that 30 days seriously.
Yeah.
And just to take it seriously, like get a little journal and write how it was, putting your shoulders back and speaking your truth, causing some trouble, you know? And like, I honestly wouldn't mind seeing that. Like if, you know, I'd love to just, you can't make anyone do anything, but if it's hitting home, just go buy a cool journal and just say, this is my shoulder back journal. Or you can probably come up with something cooler than that.
Open heart, shoulder back, whatever.
Pushing your tits out, journal. Just let's call it what it is. No.
So I got the best coaching.
That's all
today.
I heard today, guys.
I'm supposed to go through life with my tits out. Like,
I know what I'm going to title this one. Tits out.
Tits out. Transform your life. Tits
transform
out.
your life. Put your tits out. Men or women, doesn't matter. Feminine, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Male.
So good. Crissa, did you have any other questions for us? I know we're a little bit over time, but I want to honor if you have any other questions or if there's anything that you want to share to feel really complete and centered in what we explored today.
Yeah, so just in terms of, like, I know you kind of gave the takeaways, the how-tos, so, but I feel like there was a couple different times throughout the hour where I don't have a notebook. I didn't write any of this down, but is there a way that we can kind of like summarize what you guys are suggesting going forward?
Well, good news, we did record this.
This is
right.
It is recorded and it will
That's probably the best way.
Yeah.
I guess the overview would be, you know, we want to take a look at your history. So your history is going to predict your future. And we really want to understand your relational template for love. So part of the work is going to include doing those deeper dives. Part of the work is going to include working with a guide who is equipped to take you through that journey, to help give you the skill sets to explore conflict in a way that's honoring and respectful. You're about to go through a phase of transition for 2 years, and it's going to slow things down and it's going to bring things up that, you know, are kind of hidden but meddling. The reason it's coming up is not to throw you off or not to punish you or not because you were bad and like didn't get it right for the first 28 years of your life. It just means that these are things that are just incongruent with where you're going. And so it's coming up for review so that you can work with it different. And when you work with it different, you actually change the course of your destiny. We also talked about the one and demystifying that. And that, you know, give the kind guy with a spine more of a chance than date number one. And be very clear about your non-negotiables. So like, these are the character qualities that I know will really work for me in terms of a relationship. And to be honest with you, if I got my way with you, what it would look like is you taking a break from dating for the next 3 to 6 months, learning everything you can possibly learn about what it actually takes to make a really powerful relationship work. Do the work on your mindset, do the work of like practicing speaking your truth in your friend circle, like places that you feel already safe and where you don't have anything to lose there, because they, accept you full-heartedly. And then once you do a little bit of that work to understand how relationships work, because the imprint that you've got isn't totally functional. And I'm not saying you're dysfunctional. I'm saying that what was imprinted or shown to you isn't the path that you want to follow. So we just want to do a little bit of work on reconfiguring that template. And if you prioritize, your alignment, and so what makes Crissa feel like at her best every single day, and that becomes your intention for the next 6 months, I promise you, when you do step back into the dating realm, you're going to do that from such a different place. And it's so much easier to be discerning, because I feel like there's just a lot of residual stuff from your old relationships that's still interfering that might get kind of projected onto someone new, because it's not fully cleared, it's not fully integrated. And so if you spent the next 3 to 6 months working with someone or doing a program, or even just like doing that self-exploration of like, what does alignment mean to me, and studying about relationships, you'll approach it from a much more powerful, grounded, heart open, tits out, this is who I am. And I know what I'm looking for, and I'm willing to walk away from someone who's not a full-hearted yes. Like, I respect myself, I respect relationships enough to not give my commitment to someone who is a maybe or an almost, or I could work with that, but it's not really optimal. Like, we're going to step, beyond that game and like put you on the track of, you're only getting my commitment if this is a full-hearted yes. And in order for you to be able to make that choice, you need to know who you are, and then also have that skill set of, this is how you would test for alignment with a partner. This is how you would test for relational alignment in terms of conflict. This is how you actually approach conflict in a healthy way. And so learning all those skill sets, I think, would really set you up to succeed, and in the grand scheme of things would save you a lot of time and potential heartache down the road. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ben, did I miss anything?
No, it's like almost poetic, but perfect. The only thing I would add is to really, there's a couple questions I keep asking myself is this really true? I would ask every single time, every single belief you have, everything that ever comes to you, whenever you say, well, that's how that is that really true? Just start asking yourself all the time, is that true? Second thing is, lean into what you avoid. Not to solve it, not to fix it, to learn who you are, and to train your brain. Its brain is a computer, it just needs new data, and it's not going to feel natural. But that's the only thing, is that will absolutely change. Like, I'd love to hear back from you. Kelsey, I would love to hear back from you, like in a month or two, just kind of like, don't have that massive transformation, but if you put a few of these things into motion, I'm sure you'll have a level of awareness that's new. And I want to tell you, the safest place in a relationship to be is aware. It's the safest place in the world, because you can see who people are. The more you learn about yourself, the more you see others. That's the only reason I can see right through most people. I can read right into them. I look at their heart, their soul, just because I've worked so hard on just learning who I am. Because the pain was too much, I had to figure myself out. So I leaning into the pain, which sounds so sadistic, but that is really, really good for you. But I would just, without judging and just feeling it, just like, and just watch yourself feel. That makes sense. Be more observant of yourself, rather than, it's not to fix you, it's just to feel it. You'd be amazed what happens, because the judgment's not there. It's a process. And the last thing is when you're turning from a caterpillar to a flower, to a caterpillar to, let's get a laugh out. Let's get the laugh out. That's a new thing I'm doing. I just blew it. That was my new program. Whatever.
That's great.
It's the caterpillar to flower.
I like it. It's a great title for a book.
Yeah. That's okay. Don't just mock me. I'm good. See, this is my challenge, right? She's totally cool, making me feel uncomfortable. Just own that shit, Kelsey. Anyways, trying to be serious. Very hard on our when we get into it.
Yes,
it's true. But seriously, what I always think about, and I think about this for you, is your caterpillar turning into a butterfly. I really believe that. Like everything in my soul says that. But remember this, the transition's ugly. Like, what the hell does that caterpillar look like halfway through the process?
Yeah, that chrysalis is ugly.
Like, what? Do you call her ugly? You're saying
no,
I'm calling her ugly?
No, I said the chrysalis, the process.
I thought you said Crissa.
No,
like,
no.
What?
That's what it's called when the caterpillar is in.
You guys know that? I didn't finish school. Okay, I didn't get to the caterpillar chapter.
Sorry.
Anyways, okay, you got it? Good. It's a guy thing. So as soon as this happens, I'm like, you guys are talking and you're not even using words. It's so unfair. It's like another language, woman language. Anyways, but like seriously though, when you look at yourself and go, what the fuck? I'm so fucked up. What the fuck? No. You're just in process of transformation. That's all that is. It's that during that process, you can't judge the transformation. You can't even look at yourself. It's going to be weird and ugly and weird. And maybe, I don't know what that caterpillar feels like, but I wonder if it's painful. I always wonder, like we talk about how beautiful that transformation is. I think it probably sucks. Like the parts are changing.
Yeah.
Like, so just realize the transformation, we always beautify it. Like, oh, look at that. We're in that. No, I think that might be a tough process. So just realize it's uglier. You won't be able to see it totally. Like, what is it now? Just trust that you are turning into a butterfly. And like, I really believe that, Crissa. I really hope you hear that.
I second what Ben's saying. 100%.
I appreciate you both so much.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Like that takes so much courage and so much bravery, and like thank you for sharing your heart and like leaning in to that uncomfortable zone of like, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't even know.
So crazy. Yeah, like
you're already in it. You're already doing it. Like it's so cool, like how the conversation went, given what it took for you to even get on the call in the first place. So the hard work like is already, in motion. Like you basically took the hardest step by stepping into the unknown here today. And like, so like, you get to give yourself so much freaking credit, girlfriend.
Totally. I'm proud of you. I really am proud of you. Like, it's really cool. Yeah. Like, really cool. Not everyone's sitting on this show like this. So, and I think you might have more courage than you think. So I think you'll discover that too. So, well, we'll wrap it up, Crissa. I'm going to push stop recording, and then Kelsey and I kind of just have a little chat. So I'll close your view down, and we'll move on. But yeah, we'll stay in touch, Crissa. We're all pretty connected.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask one more quick question?
Sure.
In regards to, you said working with somebody to guide me through, just, I don't know who that is. I don't know.
I mean,
so Crissa,
to be honest with you, I think that what I teach in the Year of Love. Yeah.
Kelsey, just let me do this one, because I'm going to endorse you.
Okay,
No, but like, I'm glad you asked the question, because I forgot. I was going to say that. I was going to say my wife went through that. It was one of the most transformational things she's ever done. Like, it was all about self-awareness. Okay. Understanding what it's like to go to her after being on a mission mode, to being a mom and all this and working, and then coming home and she doesn't have any feminine energy. So she goes and brushes her hair or changes into nice clothes. Like, there's from the practical and then from the storyline of where you come from, and all of that stuff explores. It's ridiculous value, to be honest. I don't know what you're charging anymore, but I don't think it's that much, to be honest. So maybe you just look at, is there somewhere we can send her something?
I'll send you a link for it. Okay. And because I honestly think, like, based on everything that we explored today, like, we cover all of those areas in the masterclass. And like 1 year of investing into yourself that way to come out the other side. Like, we were talking on one of the calls this morning, and like the whole point of that curriculum is to know that you're grounded and like feel really grounded and stable in your footing, but also develop your wings so that you can fly. So like, it's this really strange dichotomy of feeling grounded and centered, but also expansive, and that by the end of the year, you can literally take on anything. So we cover relationships and purpose. Those are the two areas that we really highlight. And we go through family systems, we go through your relational template, we go through conflict. Like, there's literally modules designed for healthy conflict. Like, you get to make a conflict plan. So there's no way to be more certain and more stable than having like your plan of action of like, when I go through conflict, this is what really works. But
Crissa, you'll also get a community of a small group of women. I think that's almost equal to the curriculum. It's just to have that, like, imagine meeting someone that's in the same situation that's really wanting to deep dive, and like, it's really cool. And I think that's what Renee got out of it too, is just the people. So look into it. And I'm really glad you asked that question, because I actually had it in my head earlier, and I wanted to just kind of say, it sounds like not everyone's for that program.
No,
I think I really feel like it fits. So check into it, and I think Kelsey can help you with that stuff.
Amazing.
Okay, great.
Okay, see you, Crissa.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.